Hi guys, the Forgetful Scholar, and let's chat about books. Or book. I know, just one book this week, but this week was the holiday week, and I just, it put me on my ass. I didn't have time for anything. So I took Sunday, had like a little me day, and just finished up, started and finished a book up, and I was like, okay, this was nice. It was a nice respite for me, but yeah, anybody else's holiday seemed to get kind of bigger than you expected. Maybe it's, I don't know. If this is any kind of indication to what Christmas is going to be like, then man, I might take that week off from videos because this week I was busy. I had a blast, but I was busy. So, sorry, this week we're going to talk about Werewolf Wednesday. And the book is Nearly Human, marked book 1 by Meredith, Spies. Okay. This is, excuse me, this is a 4-star. I enjoyed it. I found another paranormal writer that I like, so I'm going to check out their stuff. So this is MM Contemporary Paranormal, and has to do with werewolves, if you didn't know by my Werewolf Wednesday or the wolf on the cover. So this was interesting. I don't know how this author normally does it, but I enjoyed myself. And there was paranormal mixed with mad science, which I haven't really seen. Personally, I haven't seen too much about, so that's interesting. We follow Landry. He is the coroner for the county, and he has 2 bodies of, I think it's the Raymond children. I don't think they were kids. I think they were around his age, but if I remember correctly. Anyway, so has to do the autopsy. Now, there is a spoiler trigger alert. Right. So, mentions of assault, descriptions of violence between supernatural creatures and humans, references to child abuse, drug use, non-consensual medical procedures, mild body horror consisting with shifter fiction, descriptions of cadavers in a scientific setting, description of hoarding, mentions of stalking, mentions of torture, but no description of past sexual assaults. So, it has a very thorough trigger page, so if any of that upsets you, don't read it. But if you're okay with any of that, and the description of past sexual assault, it wasn't intense. It wasn't, for me personally, it wasn't triggering or anything. So, okay, so there's the trigger page stuff. Now, it has to do with Landry, again, coroner, and it's the murders of the Raymonds, that all this is circled around. And yes, I realized who was involved pretty early on, but the mystery of who killed the Raymond kids, the siblings, was really fascinating to me, so I kept reading for that. So there you go. I enjoyed the mystery of that. I liked the mad science aspect of it because that was fascinating. The werewolf lore was different than what I'm used to seeing, and I felt that it was well backed up with the story, and it had its own kind of weight to it, so I enjoyed that. Now, technically, I think you could describe this as a second chance romance because Landry and the new sheriff, Ethan Stone, were together as kids. Well, not kids, but teenagers. There is one point where Landry is on, given drugs because of unsanctioned. Sorry, my nose is so stuffy and I ran out of allergy medicine, so I keep scratching. I'm gonna try to stop. So Landry's coming out of anesthesia. He's kind of hallucinating, and we see the big argument they had as teens that broke them up when he's captured. Normally, I would be like, this cuts the tension. Don't do that. And there was a bit of tension cutting in it, but at this point, it was action. So I didn't mind a little bit of a lull. And I found it kind of sweet that in his hallucination, he was thinking about Ethan. Was it necessary? No. Was it cute? Sure. did it cut the tension a little bit? Because boom, right after he kind of becomes aware, you're back in it. So it wasn't too bad. It didn't like slice it completely. It kind of slowed things down a little bit. Again, I don't think it was needed because Ethan and Landry kind of have that talk when they first come into each other's lives again, like at Landry's house. And I now the conversations between characters, I think that's what stopped it from being a 5 stars for me, because it did feel organic, but like, oh, dog noises again. It did feel organic, but it kept kind of getting interrupted. Like, it kept getting interrupted. Like, if it was interrupted once or twice, fine. But it just seemed like every single time. So that got a little, like, it got a little annoying. I was like, all right, fine. Okay. All right. Enough. We get it. You want to draw this conversation out. Fine. But now I'm a little annoyed. So that was that. The PI was interesting. I kind of hated his guts. And I think he was supposed to get redeemed, but I don't really like him. Ethan's brother was a pretty interesting character. I wonder if they're setting up the PI and Ethan to have their own stories in this, because this author does have like an older series, that I think I'm going to dive into just to see how, you know, I like diving into the older series of authors that I enjoy, just to see how their writing has evolved and see kind of like their writing styles when it comes to couples and things like that. Because, you know, I love a long series with the same couple. I mean, I read all 11 of Griffin and Wyborn series because I love them so much, you know? And that brings me back to Landry. I really liked his personality. He was like dorky and anxious and like, you know, and just like not a very good people person, and huge anxiety levels. And he was just so dorky. And then, you know, and it was cute. It was cute. And I liked Ethan, how he wasn't just like alpha male werewolf. Ooh, ooh, ooh. You know, there was points like obviously competent being a wolf and being a sheriff, but then when it came to Landry and their past relationship getting into a new one, he, you know, fumbles a little bit and he's not smooth and he's a little awkward, and I thought that was very charming, because sometimes with werewolf romances, one is like the alpha wolf that never does anything wrong, you know, and the other one is a swoons, and you know, so I liked how it just made it feel like they were more on equal ground. It wasn't like a alpha omega kind of story. It was more, it felt more realistic. It just, you know, Ethan happens to be a wolf shifter. Hey. And I'm not going to spoil what Landry is and how that happened, because I found that fascinating as it was unfolding and how they did it to him, and the betrayal sucked, but it was such good drama though. So and yeah, he doesn't get it right away, of the betrayal right away. He doesn't like come to grips with that right away, but like thinking about it, I wasn't angry about it. That felt more realistic, because if someone you're close to betrays you on that level, you're not just going to instantly like, well, they could go die in a ditch. I'm sure there's probably a lot of processing that goes on. So I was not mad about that. And I know usually I'm like, bloodthirsty, let's go. But that, I don't know, something about the story of mixing the paranormal with just real, natural, human emotions and reactions to things was really good. It was really, really good. And like Landry's anxiety, I felt was really well depicted. And I mean, the reason for it in the beginning, there's an outward force for it, you know? So I wasn't too upset when he kind of gets a handle on most of it at the end. Because it's artificial anxiety. You know what I mean? It's not like he actually has an anxiety disorder. It was put on him. Oh man, I'm not making sense. See, the mad scientist kind of stuff on this made it fascinating, and it'll make a lot more sense once you read it. The anxiety he has is artificial and placed on him by an outward party. So like I don't mind it when he kind of conquers it, but not all the way. Because sometimes, you know, I've read stuff where it's like, oh, you have a disability, but magically you're cured, da 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 da. That drives me nuts. And that's not what happens. So another point in their direction, because I like that. I don't like when disorders or chronic illness or disabilities are just magically fixed. Because it's like, you know what I mean? It's just like a weird kind of feel. Because someone who is deaf, there's nothing wrong with them. They're just deaf. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm making a lot of sense. As someone with a chronic illness that causes chronic pain, do I want it to like a magic pill fix in real life? Sure. Do I read a book where someone has a chronic illness and they get bit by a werewolf and they're magically fine? Do I find that kind of insulting? A little bit. It's a complicated topic. So I'll leave that there. As I ramble and make no sense. Da, 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 da. So I really do like the werewolf lore and kind of the deeper feel of it. This book takes place in like one small town, but it had this sense of like this huge kind of organization going on for the bad guys and the good guys. And I like that. I thought that was really interesting how the author was able to make sure this story felt big, even though technically it takes place in like 4 locations. So I was really impressed by that. And I want to read more of the story, so I'm really excited for the second book to come out, and I want to dive into it. And I also want to dive into their older stuff. So yeah, I'm happy I found another paranormal writer, because, you know, I'm super picky about it. I'm super picky. I mean, if you've noticed, there's a lot of mythology books behind me, because I am a freaking nerd. So I'm pretty picky when it comes to the supernatural, the paranormal romances. Can't help it. It's just how it is. So I enjoyed that. And I liked the couple, and I liked how they were like taking it slow. You know what I mean? It made sense. They didn't just like jump right into bed after 15 years of being apart. You know what I mean? They grew as people, and I like that Landry acknowledges that, and it is all from Landry's point of view. But I did get a nice sense of Ethan. Like, you get a nice sense of him through his like fumbles and blushes, through what he's really confident about, who he really trusts, and things like that. So yeah, I liked it. 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I was really happy Sunday just sitting on the couch and reading it. It was a good day. It reminded me how much I love reading romance, and why I love reading romance, and how no one around me reads romance. Hence why I started this channel, so I could babble to the ether of the romances I like. So there you go. So I don't want too much time for me to get back to the real world. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.